Hello, I'm Maxim and this is Go Read Something number 3, my third book review. In this one I'm going to be discussing two books. The first is going to be Atomic Habits. This review is going to take a bit longer. Tuesdays with Morrie is a bit of a different book and the review will also be a bit shorter than the first one. I want to say thanks to everybody who gave feedback and recommendations last time. Please continue to do so. I'm going to try to apply some feedback from some of you last time and continue to give these comments and recommendations for the future book reviews. Okay, so the first book is called Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. Well, this book is probably the book that has had the biggest impact, visible impact on my day-to-day activities. The concept is atomic, so small yet powerful habits that enable you to become 1% better every day and gain big results in the longer run thanks to a compound effect. We don't improve overnight. Massive results don't always require massive actions. So as humans we constantly want to set goals, we want to change certain behavior, and you can do that in 3 layers. One of those is an outcome. I want to lose weight, for example. You can change a process, which would be I want to eat more healthily and work out more. But you can also change your identity, and that means that, for example, I want to become a more healthy person. And there's a direction in how you form habits, and one of those, for example, could be an outcome-based habit where you start from a certain goal, I want to lose weight, and then see what needs to change in a process and an identity. A lot of people think that when I reach a certain goal I'll be happy, which is not necessarily the case. And James Clear actually advises to start from an identity-based habit. With the question, who do you want to be as a person? And behavior will then always be a reflection of your identity. And your identity also emerges out of your habits. Identity in Greek refers to a repeated beingness. So with every action you take, the evidence of who you want to be and who you are as a person grows. Your identity is also not set in stone. You have a choice in every moment, and habits matter for who you want to be. James Clear will focus on systems and processes in this book because according to him this gives a more sustainable growth and improvement. There's something called a habit loop, which is the backbone of every habit. This loop consists of a cue, a craving, a response and a reward. The cue is a trigger to initiate a certain behavior, and there's bits of information that predict a reward. For example, when I get up, I see it's dark. That could be the cue to my habit of turning on the light, for example. There's also a craving. Craving is the motivational force behind the habit. I want to be able to see where I'm walking, and that's why I'm turning on the light. Right? Without this desire, we will not have any reason to act. Cues in themselves are meaningless without a personal interpretation. You also have a response, which is the actual habit in the form of a thought or a behavior or an action. Me turning on the light in this case. If my craving is really strong, it will be harder to resist a response. And then you also have the reward, the final one, which is the actual end goal. Yes, I can finally see after turning on the light. It satisfies my craving and it teaches me what behavior is desirable and I want to repeat in the future. Turning on the light becomes associated with being in a dark room. Building habits is only possible when all steps are sufficiently present, and breaking habits can be done by taking away certain steps. Okay, so the first part of the habit loop is the cue. To build habits you need to make it obvious, and to break habits you need to make it invisible. First of all, you need to start off with making a list of all your current habits to be aware of what you are doing right now. You need to score them, so give them either a good, neutral or bad. So for example, I would get up and maybe snooze, that would be bad. I would put on my clothes, which I mean would be good for my housemates but neutral for me in general. I would drink a glass of water, which would be good. It's not always easy to try to identify these habits, so try to call them out and yeah, see what you are doing right now. If you want to start a habit, then it could already help if you already have an intention to just say, I want to do a certain habit at that moment, at that location. For example, you could say, I want to meditate for 10 minutes tomorrow morning at 6:30 at that spot in the sofa. You could also do habit stacking, where you say after a current habit, you do a new habit. For me, for example, after I went to the toilet, I do my push-ups and wash my hands. It could also be when in the morning I'm filling my water bottle, I'm actually grabbing an apple to eat during reading. It's also possible to design your environment. The environment can really have a big impact on your behavior. We already see that in nudges in psychology, and to remind yourself of certain habits. For example, you want to put the pills that you need to take in the middle of the table so you cannot miss them. Or for example, put a guitar in the middle of a room. So when you want to play guitar, you literally cannot miss it. Context can also have a big influence. People tend to drink more when there's other people around. We eat more when we're watching TV. But you can create your own context. Your behavior is not defined by the objects in your environment, but by our relationship to them. And you can train yourself to link a certain context to a certain behavior. For me, for example, I put a red sticker on the light switch of the toilet, so every time I go out of the toilet I see the red sticker when I'm switching the light, and it triggers me to think about, I need to do the push-ups. Same for me when I get into my car, it's immediately seatbelt, engine on, and also put it in car eco mode to prevent myself from speeding. To break habits, you can make it invisible. Self-control is often considered as a really important trait for people who appear to not really have any bad traits, but that's not necessarily true. They often also manage to just limit the cues around them. For example, if I would have ice cream in here at home, it would be really tempting to not take it when I'm watching a movie in the evening, so I just do not buy the ice cream. Once a habit is formed, it's really hard to unlearn it, and self-control is only a short-term strategy. Okay, so the second part of the loop is the craving, where you either make it attractive or unattractive. You have this form of habit stacking, where you couple the habit that you want with the habit that you need. If for me, for example, doing the push-ups after the toilet break is the habit that I need, then I could decide to afterwards check my phone, for example, if that's the habit that I want. It's the anticipation of the reward that actually motivates you. I personally don't do it, but it could help to get a certain habit started. And then you also have the social norms. I'm generally quite cautious about social norms and doing things to belong to a certain group, but it could help you, the people around you could help you to build your own habits. It's good to have yourself surrounded by people who you want to be like or admire for a certain trait of their personality. Spending time with them will then motivate you to be like them. A look around to the people close to you can be confronting this way, but I think it's quite important. When I joined the EBBC, the book club, which is full of readers, it motivated me even more to continue reading more books. The third part of the loop is the response, where you either make it easy or difficult. James Clear mentions to focus on action and repetition, not motion. So the total amount of repetitions is more important than the total duration of the actions. When you're doing 100 walks of 10 minutes, that would be better than doing 10 walks of 100 minutes to establish a walking habit. You need to first establish the habit and then improve on it. You need to show up, and the habit in the beginning should take less than 2 minutes to do. It should be very easy. For example, writing one sentence, make that a habit, or doing one push-up, make that a habit, and then only improve on it. And to avoid that it becomes too boring, try to find that Goldilocks zone where it's not too easy, not too hard. You can also prepare the environment where, for example, if you want to draw more, you put your paper and pencils at the ready to get started. Or if you want to go for a run, put your running shoes and your running clothes at the ready. For me, I put my diary that I want to write in the evening next to my bed with a pen at the ready. You can also try to make it difficult. For example, if you want to reduce your Netflix watch time, you put your laptop far away, you put a password on the logon on your computer, you delete the bookmark of Netflix. You just make it harder, make the way to your Netflix account a lot harder. It's more difficult to sustain a habit that has a lot of friction and hurdles. So the fourth and final step is the reward, to make it satisfying or unsatisfying. It's useful to immediately feel successful, to have an immediate pat on the back. You might be working on a long-term goal, but all actions towards that goal count, so try to make them visible. It could be as easy as just a tick off a to-do list, or to reward yourself on an action that you've taken. For me, for example, after I've done my run, I see my running time, for example, on my watch. Also, when I'm done running, I treat myself with a glass of chocolate milk. That's always nice. You can also track your habits, track the progress, whether you did certain habits or not, how many times you did them. You also have more visibility on whether you skipped a day or not. There's actually a dedicated video of Matt Devella on this, where he says it's possible to skip a day every now and then, but to make sure that you're never skipping 2 days in a row. For me, I track the progress of my habits in my diary, and when I'm looking at my November challenge of last year of Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins, for every workout in the morning I kept track of how many push-ups I did, how many kilometers I ran, etc. And then you also have an accountability partner. It's someone who keeps you accountable when you do certain habits or not. You're just getting in touch with someone and you encourage each other. For me, my accountability partner is one of my best friends who keeps me accountable when I'm not waking up at 6:30, for example. We send each other a nice message in the morning. It's always nice to start the day. You can also make it unsatisfying, where you, for example, set up a contract with someone on when you break a certain habit that you owe them something. To conclude, I would like to say that you can look for your own habits. Everybody can decide on which habits they want to build in line with who they want to be. Everyone can hold the habits when they're motivated, but what you do once the initial motivation is gone is crucial for where you'll end up. I reevaluate at least every 3 months if what I'm spending my time doing is in line with who I want to be. This book changed a lot in my daily schedule, in my way of thinking about habits. I really liked the book. It was really well structured, practical, clearly written, so I would definitely recommend to read it. The second book I'm going to discuss is called Tuesdays with Morrie, an old man, a young man, and life's greatest lesson by Mitch Albom. I think this was a beautiful book. I loved it. I finished it in less than 2 days, and it even got me quite emotional at the end. This review is going to be a bit shorter than the last one, and also a bit different. I'm not going to go into depth. I'm actually going to read the first page of the book, which is a kind of summarizing page that sets the scene for the rest of the book. And I'm only going to touch upon a couple of topics, because I think it's hard to bring these messages the same way the author does, and without the right context they might come across as quite didactic. Nevertheless, I'm going to share some valuable lessons I got out of it. The book is about the relationship between the author, Mitch, and his former college professor, Morrie Schwartz. Mitch was a busy sports journalist, working long days, hitting deadlines, fast-paced life, making lots of money, but stopped pursuing his passion for piano, etc. And he finds out that the professor is suffering from ALS, and he gets back in touch with the professor, who only has a couple more months to live. Okay, I'm now going to read the first page of the book. The curriculum. The last class of my old professor's life took place once a week in his house, by a window in the study where he could watch a small hibiscus plant shed its pink leaves. The class met on Tuesdays. It began after breakfast. The subject was the meaning of life. It was taught from experience. No grades were given, but there were oral exams each week. You were expected to respond to questions, and you were expected to pose questions of your own. You were also required to perform physical tasks now and then, such as lifting the professor's head to a comfortable spot on the pillow, or placing his glasses on the bridge of his nose. Kissing him goodbye earned you extra credit. No books were required, yet many topics were covered, including love, work, community, family, aging, forgiveness, and finally, death. The last lecture was brief, only a few words. A funeral was held in lieu of graduation, although no final exam were given. You were expected to produce one long paper on what was learned. That paper is presented here. The last class of my old professor's life had only one student. I was the student. The book talks about many things, like love, to be open to receive love and give out love, to not have too much self-pity and be happy with the things you do have. It talks about the importance of family, about the idea of having lots of money and power, and that it does not give you the feeling that you're looking for. Society says more is good, but the important question to ask yourself is, what do I need versus what do I want? I'm also quite a big fan of the principle of minimalism. And furthermore, he talks about how you should allow yourself to dive into and experience emotions and get familiar with these emotions. This way you can more easily detach from them if you want to. There's a similarity here with Emotional Agility, the book we discussed last book review. There's a message in the book that I find really valuable, and it's about fully be with the person you're with. Be fully present. I mean, we're always in a hurry. Also, don't form an internal dialogue on what you're going to respond next to what the person just has said, but really listen to what they have to say. Besides that, we're really way too good at small talk. I think we should take the time to love your loved ones, because you never know when you can't anymore. There's actually a quote from the book, something Morrie says after attending a funeral. He says, "What a waste, all those people saying those wonderful things and never got to hear any of it." That made me think about the book that I actually discussed in a first book review called Tribe from Sebastian Junger, that talks about the value of meaningful relationships and talking about the relationship and what you mean to each other. The book also talks about consciousness about death, not only about the mortality of others, so we appreciate the time that we spend with them, but also the mortality of yourself. It's a thought that many people prefer to suppress, but I think it can really help to set priorities and see obstacles as ways to learn and be fully present. There's actually a saying in Buddhism that goes, once you learn how to die, you learn how to live. I mean, these principles are not that easy, and I put them also in this book review to remind myself to keep trying to follow these principles as good as possible. This book talks about the influence of teachers, and I've asked myself the question, how many teachers do you generally have that influence your direction in life? 1, maybe 2, 3 if you're really lucky. I think it's the role of every teacher and mentor to try to be that one teacher to a student and inspire the students with their passion for a certain subject and transfer it through teaching. There is a quote from Henry Adams that says, "A teacher can affect eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." And I recently expressed my gratitude towards the teacher that gave my life some kind of direction. I think they deserve it. We all need some kind of guidance in our life. A mentor, a person who maybe inspired you to do something online, an author that touched a string, a parent, a teacher, a professor, or whoever you come across in your life. And I love how this book showed the relationship between a teacher and a student. Okay, that was it. I hope I succeeded in bringing across the gist of this book. I think it's a nice read. It's emotional yet thought-provoking and a very smooth read as well. So consider reading it if you thought this sounded interesting. I just want to thank you for listening, for watching. Let me know what you think, and now go read something. Bye.